Welcome in, boys and girls. On a good-looking Monday, it's time for the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented, as always, by the fine folks at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle. Mo Patton will be joining us here in just a matter of moments. Don't you worry, folks. Mo is back from his big trip out west, and he will be joining us here in just a few seconds once we get things officially kick-started here on MSST. As always, our producer making the magic happen behind the glass, the one, the only producer, Mark Rogers. And we have a big show lined up for you guys today. I'm personally excited. I know Mo is pumped. Producer Mark has been working diligently all morning to get this thing cranked up. So we are excited to be with you guys as turkey time is right around the corner, folks. Last full week before we get into Thanksgiving. You know what that means. Tons of sports to recap. We've got a boatload of topics to go through today, and we're going to hit them all, really. We're going to talk a little NHL. Not good news, but we'll at least have some news when we talk to our good friend, Ann KIMMEL, who would join us for Penalty Box Radio coming up here in just a few. We'll also talk with our longtime good friend and recurring guest, Ben McKee from Go Balls 24/7. So make sure that you stick around for those two in particular, but really just stick around for the entirety of today, because it's going to be an epic show. And like we said, we've got some NFL news and notes. We've got college football news and notes. And my, oh my, what a weekend it was on the gridiron in both of those realms, folks. As just when you thought the chaos from Saturday was pretty epic, we saw some equally compelling theater in yesterday in terms of the NFL. Sadly, not that great for the Tennessee Titans, but there was some bright spots. So there were a few, if you look deep enough, a few little bright spots kind of buried in there. So kind of excited to tap into that. And as we mentioned, in addition to all of the run of show that we've got prepared for you guys, coming up here in just a little bit, we'll get into one of our favorites. We'll give you the results and the scores from the weekend. We'll do all that. Kind of a big weekend. It really kickstarted, as I kind of sit here and think about it, kickstarted on Friday night. We talked that we had Thursday off. After a couple weeks of high school football games that were played on Thursday, we did have nothing but Friday night lights. And my, oh my, were there some dandies on Friday night. Some teams making history, some teams falling by the wayside, some teams making lengthy road trips, some teams getting ready to make further road trips as we get into the quarterfinals. So that kind of set the stage on Friday, and then really it just rolled and kind of snowballed into Saturday. Big shakeups across the college football landscape. And then, as we mentioned, that leads into Sunday, where some compelling games in the afternoon slate, in particular, Sunday afternoon. The one and only, back from a sabbatical, there's our good friend Maurice Patton, who is playing peekaboo, but he's back, I believe, with everybody.
Yeah, that sabbatical was about 5 minutes longer than I would have liked, Wade, but I'm glad to be here. You know, technology is a beautiful thing when it works, and we were getting some scares there early on, but glad to be with you. And I know you were capably driving this thing, so just continue to do so, man.
Well, I was just running through everything. We talked about Ben and Ann obviously going to join us. We talked about the chaos that ensued Friday. They almost increased in levels of anarchy from high school football to college football to NFL yesterday. So really, we kind of had a great little weekend. We had a great little run-up. We had outstanding weather. Really, I don't know about you, partner, but really a perfect weekend in many regards.
Man, it couldn't have got a whole lot better, particularly for the second weekend in November, man. I mean, great weather Friday night for some high school football wherever you were. Great weather yesterday for either college football or from driving back from a high school football game, depending on where you were on Friday night. And great weather yesterday as well. So, yeah, a lot of folks were able to get out and enjoy football or whatever else, unless you were at Nissan Stadium, in which case you probably did not necessarily enjoy football. But
yeah, that was a cruel tease they played on us yesterday, Mo.
Yeah, things weren't great there, but yeah, big weekend, big Monday. You've taken us through the landscape, so I guess with that said, let's go ahead and get things rolling with this weekend's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
We do got us a big old rundown here, boys and girls. But before we get to it, we want to remind you that each and every single Monday, our rundown is brought to you by our friends at Zion Christian Academy. ZCA is offering a faith-based, Christ-centered education right here in Murray County. So you can give them a call today. That number is 931-388-5831. Or you can visit zioneagles.org and schedule an appointment today. Once again, Monday Rundown, sponsored by Zion Christian Academy, where they are prepared for college, equipped for purpose.
Let's get started with some Friday night football results. Beach, by a field goal, holds off Munford 33-30. It was Boyd Buchanan with a 35-0 win over Grace Christian out of Franklin. Brentwood Academy defeats Montgomery Bell Academy 42-14. It was Coalfield 39, Joe Burns 14. Collierville with a 39-28 win over Antioch. Knoxville Central scores late, defeats Columbia Central at home, 38-28 the final there for the Bobcats. Covington 56, Sycamore 14. Blackman making the long trek to Kingsport down in Dobbins-Bennett 28-7. East Robertson with a 35-14 win over Peabody. Nail biter out on Highway 100 as Christ Presbyterian Academy defeats Ensworth 17-15. East Nashville goes to Memphis, knocks off Fairleigh 28-20. Dyersburg with a 52-35 win over Fairview. Franklin Road Academy 49. Silverdale out of Chattanooga 19. Giles County at the Brickyard downs McMinn Central 41-6, their 8th straight win. Battleground Academy with a 42-14 win over Grace Christian out of Knoxville. Green Hill defeats Science Hill 35-28. Henry County 31, Nolensville 24. Knoxville Halls with a 42-14 win over Lawrence County. It was Maryville 47, Riverdale 18, Melrose 22, Maplewood 8, and Centennial going down I-40, picking up a 38-19 win over Memphis Central.
More scores coming your way from Friday night. Middle College with a 14-7 win over Eagleville. Milan defeating Mount Pleasant 42-16. Nashville Christian roughed up Jackson Christian 42-14 was that final there. It was Oakland 35, Bradley Central 10. Page with a 24-7 win over Kirkwood. Pearl Cone with a 35-21 win versus Crockett County. Providence Christian outlasting Friendship Christian. Things the game went to overtime, maybe double overtime. 41-40 was your final Friday night in that thriller. Ravenwood 38, Houston 7. Richland wallops South Fulton 42-8. South Gibson 42, Spring Hill 7. It was Southwind 48, Brentwood 14. Springfield turns back Lexington 37-6. Trinity Christian with a 49-0 victory over Middle Tennessee Christian. USJ 28, DCA 7. Westview with a 55-7 victory over Westmoreland. Whitehaven downing Independence Friday night 47-0. Women's basketball, WBB action from Friday night. There was Trevecca 54, Berry 46. Campbellsville walloping UT Southern 81-49 was that final. Not UT Southern, but UT Arlington defeating Tennessee State 78-58 in women's basketball Friday. And Cumberland caps that scoreboard 86-47. Fisk with a lone men's basketball result of local interest on Friday, defeating Wright State Lake Campus. That score was 97-69. Talked about it in action on Friday, and the Preds did pull out a 2-1 victory by the end of the show over the Penguins in Game 1 of the Global Series in Stockholm.
Saturday, women's basketball action. UT Southern with a 73-69 win over Lindsey Wilson. It was Trevecca downing Lynn 86-54, and Rice with a 66-59 win over the Lady Raiders of Middle Tennessee State. In men's basketball action on Saturday, Austin Peay defeats North Carolina Greensboro 69-63. Vanderbilt with a 104-75 win over UAPB Arkansas Pine Bluff. Lipscomb 98, Bryan 53. Belmont with an 83-60 win over Oral Roberts. It was Palm Beach Atlantic 97, Trevecca 88, and Lindsey Wilson with a 76-55 win over the Firehawks of UT Southern. College football from Saturday, Austin Peay downing Samford 30-16. Gardner Webb with a 30-14 win over at Nissan against Tennessee State. Western Kentucky furthering Middle Tennessee State's woes 42-26, and Tennessee with a 42-9 win over visiting New Mexico State. In NBA action on Saturday night, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers defeating the Memphis Grizzlies 108-100.
Roll into Sunday, get up early and watch the Preds. Probably should have kept sleeping. Penguins defeating them 4-0 in the second game of the Global Series over there in Sweden. NFL action, little excitement late, but it leads in deflation as the Texans Titans fall victim to one of their own, self-inflicted as they give up a field goal late by previous roster member. More on that later, but 16-13 was your final there. Women's basketball from yesterday afternoon, Belmont topping Dayton 72-66. It was Austin Peay 77, Indiana State 73. Mississippi Valley State with a 72-68 win over Lipscomb. UT Martin all over Fisk on Sunday afternoon, 79-39. Trevecca outlasting Embry-Riddle 88-82. That was the lone men's basketball game yesterday, played at 4 p.m. And again, 88-82 sounds like a barn burner between Trevecca and Embry-Riddle.
That does indeed. High school basketball gets going tonight. We've got 3 games on the schedule here. Battle Creek travels to Franklin Christian. That is a doubleheader. These are all doubleheaders with the girls playing first at 6 and the boys to follow. Again, Battle Creek is at Franklin Christian at 6. Fairview goes to Summit. That's a 6 o'clock girls start. And Creekwood is at Sycamore. Boys only. Rossview plays Bartlett. That is a 6:30 start. Not sure of a site for that one. Tennessee Heat is at McCallie for a 5 o'clock Central Time start. In men's basketball action tonight, you can see this one at 7:30 on the SEC network, and I'm sure we'll be talking to Ben McKee more about it later in the show, as the Owls of Rice invade Food City Center at Thompson Bowling Arena, taking on the 20th ranked Tennessee Volunteers. And at 7:15 on ABC, you can see Monday Night Football as Dallas goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown. Brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly and Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. You know, we had Teresa Walker on late last week, and the discussion about the Grizzlies coach was that a change might be imminent in the Bluff City. Well, they beat her to it. They beat the Grizzlies to it in the Crescent City. Willie Green, after getting into his 5th season, only got about 12 games into his 5th season. The Pelicans have made a move. Willie Green is out. Assistant coach James Borrego has been elevated, and there are those that would kind of have you believe that this is like moving deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, the Pelicans were 2-10 at the time that this move was made, but I'm not sure that things get better with a coaching change, but it's the first thing a lot of folks look at. So here we are. New Orleans with the first move in the NBA.
First move, but won't be the last, but feels like this was by far going to be your first, because New Orleans is in a world of misery, not just in terms of the record. They're 2-11. In a weird way, the 2-11 that they have this season might be the most optimistic thing that they've got going, because they have really hamstrung themselves down the road. We talked about it in the summer, right, Mo? They drafted Derek Queen 10 spots ahead of where most people would have. They traded up 10 spots to get this guy. They gave up an unprotected 2026 pick, which looks like it could be, first overall. You're talking about trading away a potential first overall pick to maybe do what? Maybe make a run that has never appeared. They tried to I kind of see the pieces, right? Trying to maybe build around Zion and trying to maybe get what you can out of him while he still has a glimmer of potential there. But none of it has worked. And yeah, you're right. Willie Green is kind of the first to fall on the sword, but he certainly won't be the last. Whether that's across the NBA with coaches or whether that's in New Orleans with management.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, it sounds like some of this is eventually going to fall in Joe Dumars' lap as well, and you kind of hate to see that. That's been a guy who, made the transition from the floor to the front office and has done some good work, but apparently not in New Orleans. So, lot going on, again, in the Crescent City, and Willie Green won't have to worry with it anymore, I don't guess. It's interesting. You finally get Zion some semblance of healthy, and this is what you get.
Yeah, and that's been their MO from the jump, right? Is trying to find a way to get him healthy, trying to find a way to keep him in a super competitive shape, shall we say? And so they've kind of struggled with that the last few years, and that was what made the trade for Queen so alarming at the time. You jump up 10 spots to draft a lighter version, in a sense, of Zion. It was a head scratching move then. And as I mentioned, they could have potentially given up the first overall pick in what is going to be a mammoth class. We've talked about it already. The 2026 draft is going to be potentially an all-timer. And you could be sitting there with someone else taking your number one overall pick. And to Mo's benefit, it's Atlanta Hawks. So maybe Mo's like, yeah, keep losing, Pelicans. I want that number one overall spot. But you're right, too. That's the other head-scratching part of this. Everybody has these great memories of Joe Dumars, not only as a player, but as a Pistons front office guy. But he had largely been out of that role. And so the Pelicans just mysteriously kind of bring him off the street, kind of back in the mix. The game has certainly kind of changed a little bit. You'd like to think his street cred and his knowledge would have translated, but even that appears not to have really translated. So it is a big old dumpster fire down there in New Orleans right now. Like I said, the wins that they've got, the 2 wins, and with the 11 losses, that's putrid as is, but it might be as excited as they get all year because things look grim beyond.
There you go. New Orleans first to market in terms of a coaching change. And, so where do you go? Do you think they make another move? Is Borrego just there kind of holding that down? Or do you think he goes the rest of the way, the next, 69 games in this role?
At this point, you pretty much are. Everybody knew coming into the season that you didn't have a clue what the heck you were doing. And the only people that seemingly did were the execs in New Orleans. And within 2 weeks, that played out. And now you're kind of just stuck. They can't really do a lot because of the contract setup that they have. Zion is going to command such a price. You are really, with the way the second apron works now in the NBA, you're really kind of limited as to who can even trade or who can even dance with you, on the floor, so to speak. They're kind of screwed. Just no really other way around it. They're screwed this season. So why not? Yeah. If they fired this interim coach down the road, would I be shocked? No, not really. But also somebody's got to coach the team and catch the L's and kind of catch the public wrath. Might as well be this guy.
There you go. There's your top story as we get things rolling on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we will be joined by Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio. Speaking of catching L's, talk a little them too. Talk a little Predators with Ann when we come back.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3, 3.
Be oh busy bee.
Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm
busy
ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
We continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Joining us now from Penalty Box Radio, Ann Kimmel. You can find her on Twitter or on X at @AnnK_Mama on Ice. Ann, did you make it to Stockholm?
Only in spirit. Only in spirit. I had hoped to get to Sweden to cover the game, but unfortunately had some things come up this summer and didn't get there, but I certainly tuned in. One game was a lot of fun to watch, and then there was the Sunday morning game.
One game was a lot of fun to watch. 2-1 win in overtime on Friday, snapping a 5-game skid for the Predators. And the first thing I thought was all it took was for them to get out of the country to get a win. So, obviously a big one there, and even bigger in light of the events of Sunday morning, 4-0 beat down by the Penguins in the back end of that Global Classic. And it's almost like right back where you started, right?
Yeah, we had sort of looked at the Global Series as being a benchmark moment for this team in this season. By the Global Series, games 19 and 20 of this season, we should have a pretty good idea of who this team is. But those two games in Stockholm showed exactly a microcosm of the bigger picture, which is we don't really even know what this team is. You had the one game that really was a storybook game with Philip Forsberg tying it up late in front of the Swedish crowd and Steven Stamkos winning in overtime. But then they came out and it really was a very opposite game where the Nashville Predators struggled to get puck possession. They were making some pretty obvious mistakes. They just were absolutely outplayed by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And so after 20 games, we still don't have a consistent idea of who this team is. And by not knowing, that tells you something.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Ann. I mean, do we not know?
Yeah, we really do, because we don't know enough. And at this point, there should be some clear signs if this team was moving in a trajectory that was more promising. But what it is Andrew Burnett referred to it as not gaining traction. This is a team that can win one here or there, but they're not building on the things that get them those wins. And you see a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. And when you don't have a clear picture, it gives you a clear picture, which is
Right.
This team isn't necessarily going to go anywhere. This could be another 82-game season like last year, where there are fits and starts and stops, and they get nowhere.
There's a saying in football: if you have two quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. It feels like there's kind of a tweak to that here. When you are seeing so much consistent inconsistency, like you said, it feels like to me that kind of tells you something as well.
Yeah, there is something about the consistent inconsistency of this team. And that was the one thing that we thought this season it's going to clear up. We'll know, 20 games in, we're going to have a very clear picture of who they are. And the inconsistency is who they are.
Right.
So now you have to figure out what are the steps it's going to take to clear that up. And I think the Predators are in a situation where it's going to be 2 or 3 steps back to eventually make 1 or 2 steps forward. And I think people kind of have to brace themselves for this is who they are.
And, you kind of paint a tough picture there, but I'm curious, and we'll talk about, maybe some external moves you could make to try and shake things up. But I'm curious, is there anything in terms of just either lineup construction or just, trying new faces in new places? Is there any of that that's still maybe at the disposal of the coaching staff or the front office to at least try one last little thing before you realize or come to grips like, hey, this may not work?
I think there are maybe some very small options that you have. A lot of people are looking at the roster and saying, hey, let's give some of these young players like a Joachim Kimmel, who traveled with the team to Sweden but never was in the lineup. He was a healthy scratch. Let's give him a shot. Let's recall a couple of players from Milwaukee. I think Zachary LaRue is a player they'd like to get in the lineup, but he's out with injury. So I think that there are maybe some little moves that they could make, maybe mixing up some line chemistry. But ultimately, what you have is you have a team that doesn't have the center depth that they need for playmaking right now. And you have a system that looks like it could work, but not with the roster you have. I always joke around and say, as parents, you parent the kid you have, not the kid you wish you had. You may wish you had a sports-loving kid, but your kid loves musical theater. The same thing coaching. You coach the team you have, not the team you wish you had. And I think that's where Nashville is feeling a little bit of a disconnect. Not that Andrew Brunette's system is necessarily bad, but it doesn't fit. And so you have to find a way to coach the roster you currently have. Now, I don't think that roster is going to look the same at the end of these 82 games, but you have to do something with what's before you.
And so that was one of those external factors I'm talking. I'm thinking trade, or obviously, or I'm thinking a coaching change, perhaps, as we may touch on in a second. But those kind of moves are ones that reverberate across the league, and those, and the real question I kind of am wondering. We've heard the term rebuild, or Trotz has preached, hey, this is a process type situation. Have we got enough data that maybe we're not even rebuilding the way that we wanted to rebuild? If that's a weird way to ask that, I guess. Like, maybe do we have to now rethink everything that we were already doing in terms of that? Even though it was going to stink, we kind of now have to re-alter the stinking, so to speak.
No, I absolutely understand the question. And I think when Trotz kicked off his tenure as the general manager, this was going to be a youth movement. But he pivoted with that hope that an 18-game point streak gave to Barry Trotz, the front office, the team, the fan base. Now you have to go back to square one because the pivot didn't lead down the right path. So you do kind of have to go back and refocus on the youth movement and refocus on a build. Barry Trotz doesn't like the word rebuild. He says rebuild like Arthur Fonzarelli says, I'm sorry on Happy Days episodes. Like he says build. But it really is, you really do have to look at this team and say, this is a team that's got to go back to square one and focus on developing youth alongside a handful of veterans who can sort of mentor them along.
And Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. And as you talk about build, no re. Are the people in place to engineer that? Because it feels like to me, and this is a 30,000 foot view. Obviously, there are a number of people that are more close to this team than I am, but Barry Trotz doesn't necessarily feel like a youth movement type of general manager, and Andrew Brunette doesn't necessarily feel like a youth movement type of coach. So if that is where this franchise is as we sit here in mid-November, what does that mean, not just for player personnel, but up the line?
I think this franchise is at a point where you have to look up the line because it's clear that there is a bigger problem, and it's a problem with a lot of layers. And so you really have to leave no stone unturned. And I think you make an interesting point about Barry Trotz, because in your mind, you don't think of him as the developer of young players necessarily. You tend to think of Barry Trotz as kind of that more old school hockey philosophy. He's very big on culture because he was the the first head coach here in Nashville. He's very big on things like the Predator way, how we do what we do. And while there's benefit to that, I think you do also have to take a minute and say, how are you going to bring in these young players and develop them? Because the game does change a lot. And what is going to win a championship may look very different even 5 seasons from now than it does right now. So I think at this point, everything has to be looked at. When the team is where they are and where they have been so consistently, I think you have to look at coaching. You have to look at roster construction. You have to look at the pipeline and see, what do we really have here? And I do think you have to look at the front office and say, do we have a path forward where we can transition this? It's going to hurt. There is no pretty way out of this, but is there a clear path forward where this team can take those 3 steps back, but know that 1 or 2 steps forward is coming down the line? And a lot of that will happen in the front office. So I think it's a fair question. I don't know that right now the Predators have an ownership group that is ready to make a big decision on the front office, just because the majority shareholder, Bill Haslam, he's very new. So it's hard for us to predict how much he wants to get involved in things like that. It may be even hard for him to predict right now how involved he wants to be in that. So I think everything has to be looked at, but I don't know that everything will be adjusted.
And with Barry Trotz's history in this town, obviously, as you mentioned, the first coach, the Predator way, all of that, does he get some extra grace that maybe Barry Smith wouldn't get? And, is that deserved at this point? I mean, I don't want to be the one to kick on Barry Trotz any more than anybody else in this town does. But sometimes when the rubber meets the road, things don't look good. And this town doesn't support non-winners very well.
Yeah, it's not a super fun time to be a sports fan in Nashville. It's tough going. And I think that makes this feel a little bit worse for Barry Trotz. Of course, he is very beloved here, but what he has done in his early years as a general manager has not on paper looked super successful. And I think you look at the top of the list and it's the signings of Stamkos and Marchessault and Shea, which I think on one hand you can say, well, I like that he went for it, but the problem is that he went for it with large contracts and with no move clauses. And that really becomes difficult to turn around. So I think that there are some questions about it. I'm also just personally one of those people who I love getting different people in different positions. So I probably have more grace than a lot of people because I think it's great to see new faces in new positions. This is a league that generally recycles a lot of the same people. And with a general manager, I know it doesn't feel like this. It does not feel like this. But 2.5 seasons of Barry Trotz is actually not a very long time for a general manager. So I think that there is a lot of frustration in the fan base about what has happened. I think Barry Trotz needs to be very strategic and wise in how he tries to navigate out of this. And I think that a lot of people are going to be watching because, look, coaching and general managing, those are 2 very different skill sets. And, one is relational, one is tactical. And so Barry Trotz has to learn how to transition more to the tactical. We're going to see how that turns out.
You talked about some of the contracts and you mentioned Jonathan Marchessault. I don't think I've heard that name in about 3 weeks. It doesn't feel like.
Yeah, he's been very, very quiet. Started the year looking pretty good. He has been very, very quiet recently. And that is concerning, especially because this is somebody who's on a $5.5 million deal and has a no move clause. So it would take the players saying, I'm willing to waive that and I want to go here, here, or here. And Barry Trotz to be able to make that happen for something new to change. I don't know how much you can take a veteran like Jonathan Marchessault and change his position in the roster to spark him. So this may be a case of it doesn't fit.
And this is obviously a rough patch, but I'm curious, dysfunction is kind of a word that maybe you could throw around in terms of whether it's coaching or talent or, even the front office. Are there any other examples or recent parallels where, hey, this franchise was really kind of down in the dumps and they turned it around doing X, Y, Z? Is there any sort of recent blueprint or a recent franchise that at least I'm grasping at straws, so I just want something nice to hopeful cling to. Give me something to look at,
Absolutely. So I think that there are two very opposite end of the spectrum franchises that have had success doing two very different things. One that Barry Trotz often talks about, the Washington Capitals. They sort of did a retooling on the fly where they didn't tear it all down and wait for this, these young prospects to develop. They just sort of added the right pieces. That would be amazing, but that's also a little bit like finding lightning in a bottle. And I think that Barry Trotz tried to do that and it didn't work. Another franchise to look at, San Jose Sharks. Now, this is a team that really struggled, and they struggled so much they got several very, very high draft picks. Macklin Celebrini is one that has just been incredible. And you knew going in with the San Jose Sharks, buckle up, friends, you're looking at 7 to 8 years of nothing but the pain train. But you will find that right now, the San Jose Sharks are having a lot of fun with a little bit of success. And I think it makes all the difference. If you're a bad team headed in the right direction, you can almost enjoy the losses because there is some progress.
100%.
But if you are a bad team stuck where you are, those losses feel very, very different. So I think you can look at those two franchises and say they went about it two different ways. Both of them have their own struggles and difficulties and challenges. There are ways out of this, but it is going to take time and it is going to hurt a little bit.
So basically what you're saying is embrace the suck.
Yes, absolutely. Embrace the suck. You got to look for the joy where you can find it. I would point you to Matthew Wood. That is the joy right now for the Predators. This is a 20-year-old kid, can't buy a beer, but can score a goal. And he has been a ton of fun to watch. So I really do think Predators fans to stay engaged, to find some joy in the next process, which is probably going to last several seasons at best. You've got to look for the Matthew Woods.
And wouldn't it be easier for the fan base if they heard that from someone in charge? Look, we know things aren't going well and we don't necessarily see a way out. I mean, maybe just that honesty. I don't know if that happens or not, but I think that this fan base has been sold that we're going to be competitive, which makes not being competitive even more frustrating.
Absolutely. I think one thing about Barry Trotz, he's good at communicating. He likes to talk about things, but I do think you need to have at minimum right now, the very basic minimum bar right now for this fan base is hearing from Barry Trotz, this sucks. We are not headed in the right direction. We absolutely have to do some things to fix this. And I don't necessarily think Barry Trotz doesn't believe that, but he has danced around saying it that directly. And right now, the fan base at minimum needs to hear that honest, acknowledgement from the front office that, yeah, it sucks.
I feel like every time we get you on, I'm asking you this question, but there's a reason. I mean, these guys play again Saturday when Colorado comes to Bridgestone. With this much of a layoff coming out of Sweden and some time off, if you were going to make a coaching change, this wouldn't be a bad time to make it, would it?
This is the perfect window. This is the perfect window. I think you know enough to know what you know. And if Barry Trotz wants to do something immediately, this is the window for your coaching change. The Predators are off ice until Wednesday morning. They'll be back at practice. This would be the time to do it. Look, Colorado is one of the best teams in the league. They are playing out of their mind. If they continue, this is going to be a cup contending team. Saturday may hurt. And if you are going to make a change, this is your window to bring in somebody new or to name an interim coach and get the players used to it and get ready for Saturday. So I think if we don't hear anything from Barry Trotz by Wednesday, Andrew Brunette will be here until the end of the season.
If he makes it to the weekend, now the next question kind of becomes how much more rope does he get in this sense, in your mind at least?
I think probably if he makes it to this weekend, I think what will happen is that Andrew Brunette will likely stick around, and what Barry Trotz will start doing very aggressively is going to be looking at how he can move pieces off this roster. The tricky part is timing is everything when it comes to making a trade, moving big contracts, and this may not be the window for that to happen. And I think the fan base is ready for something. So if Andrew Brunette is not gone by this weekend, I think Barry Trotz will look to do that. But those big moves that are really going to change things and move the needle may not happen until the trade deadline in March.
Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. The Predators again return to the ice on Saturday against visiting Colorado. They have then got Florida coming to town on Monday. And you talk about this could hurt.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, Ann, I wanted to ask you before we get, we send you off with full doom and gloom. What can you tell us, though? We talked a little bit about Friday with Forsberg, obviously making the return and getting involved with the community, donating like 20 sets of equipment. I'm curious, he got a hero's welcome. Was it a king's welcome back home?
Well, they don't call him Prince Philip for nothing. He is royalty over there. And so it really was a great time for Philip Forsberg. He and another player, Adam Wilsby, who is a Stockholm native, were sort of charged with being the cruise directors for the team as far as what do you need to see, where do you need to eat. And then they did spend a lot of time doing some work in the community, like you mentioned, donating some equipment. Their practices were open practices to the public. So a lot of youth teams in Sweden traveled to come and even watch the practices. So this, despite the wins, the losses, the outcome, where this team is, it really was, it was a great moment for Philip Forsberg, for Adam Wilsby, for the Predators. And I think it was a really great outreach for the NHL as far as the relationship with the NHL and Sweden went.
It's really a fascinating looking arena from the pictures I saw of it.
Yeah, it did. It looked really cool. And the people that I know that were there said the atmosphere was fantastic.
That reminds me, I hate to do this, Ann, but it did dawn on me yesterday when I saw the final result. They're playing at the Avicii Arena, rest in peace. But he had the famous song, said, "Wake me up when it's all over." And I just kept thinking every time the Penguins scored, I was like, oh man, tough look to be having Avicii blasting that one as they get pounded. But hopefully some new some juice either from a coaching change or, as you kind of mentioned, some new pieces and new places. I'm not giving up just yet. So thank you for selling me on that at least.
Yeah, there are changes, I think, coming. They may not come as quickly as the fan base wants, but I think that we know what we know.
Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio. She knows what she knows. And we appreciate her sharing it with us here on Main Street Sports today. And we'll catch up with you soon. Thanks.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you, Ann.
Let's take a break. Let's come back and continue the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. We will talk a little high school athletics. Plenty to talk about. Stick around.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Weekend Wrap-Up continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, and we go from pros to preps. The second round of the high school football state playoffs are now in the books. In Division I, in D2, the quarterfinals are in the books. And, you know, there's a lot to kind of digest, particularly if you were traveling, as one of us was. Went out to Memphis
doing the Lord's work on Friday. Mo racking up the miles, baby.
Well, you know, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. But yeah, Independence at Whitehaven. And you know, when you get to the second round, seeds kind of go out the window. The Tigers, the host Tigers, were the number 3 seed out of their region. Independence was the number 4 seed out of their region. Both, I guess, had first round upsets, but Whitehaven's offense didn't get on the field until it was 14-0, as they had a couple of pick sixes to open the game against Independence. And when you start like that, it's probably not going to go a whole lot better. 47-0, as we mentioned during the rundown, was the final in that one, as Whitehaven advances. And Whitehaven will host undefeated Ravenwood this Friday night. But it was interesting. I went through the brackets after updating mine by hand over the weekend. Between the Division I second round games and the Division II quarterfinal games, there were 60 games played. 10 were decided by one possession. I don't know exactly what that says, as my chair is not cooperating with me. Take me down just a second, Mark, so I can fix this.
We need to bring them deficits down, and we need to bring that chair back up. There were some games that were a little lopsided, and Mo's on a heater, so we'll get him back in and let him resume just as soon as he's ready here. Now you're back.
Yeah, I don't know what it says, but we had talked about some pretty non-competitive first round games, where there were some pretty non-competitive second round games as well. South Pittsburgh beat Oliver Springs 49-0. Clay County with a 52-21 win over Midway. Your guys down in North Giles County, the Richland Raiders, hammered South Fulton 42-8, and their opponent this week, McKenzie, did likewise to Greenfield 56-6, and that was just in Class 1A. I mean, it was pretty much an epidemic across all 6 of the Division I brackets. Just some really lopsided performances, even in the second round. You would have thought that things would have evened out a little bit, but I don't know how you necessarily fix that, or if you fix that. Maybe there's just not enough good football teams to warrant 4 teams out of each region.
That's where I land on that, right? I mean, we see this in a lot of different postseasons, and we'll talk about this in the college football playoff, right? I mean, once you get beyond like 10, I mean, there's a reason that a lot of them college football playoff opening round games are as lopsided as they are. It's a similar exercise here with the TSSAA, but just the fact that so many teams get in, you got one round to maybe weed out the real weaklings, and then you got the second round, maybe give you a little bit of compelling theater, but by and large, chalk's going to usually reign supreme. This is where you can kind of really start strapping on your helmets a little tighter, I feel like, though.
Yeah, I think this weekend it really kind of gets real. But there was an article on TriCitySports.com last week that we didn't get to really talk about as much as we would have liked, because Kevin Creasy pulled a late arrival on us on Thursday. But it kind of analyzes the second round and the tweak that they've made to the Division I playoff bracket where rather than seeing someone potentially from your own region in that second round, there's kind of some cross bracketing going on, and the result was a whole lot more travel. As I mentioned, I went to Memphis. A lot of folks, we had a bunch of teams in the mid-state in Memphis over the weekend, both in D1 and in D2. And, like we said during the rundown, Blackman had to go up to Dobbins Bennett. Riverdale played over at Maryville in the second round of the Class 6A bracket. And the travel for the second round, I think it virtually doubled from what it would have been under the previous format. That said, the TSSAA Board of Control is meeting on Thursday, and one of the agenda items is the playoff format and early returns on it, because this is only officially in place for this 2025 postseason. They still have not determined what the playoff format will look like for the remainder of this 4-year classification, which is the 26, 27, and 28 football seasons. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for that meeting.
Yeah, that was scheduled, you said, or is this a call? Oh man, yeah, the timing could not be better or worse depending on where you land on this. And you mentioned I gave those numbers out right at the end of Monday's show last week. Total cumulative mileage round trip in the second round, courtesy of Tri-City Sports, nearly 16,000 miles compared to last year, 6,600. You're looking at like 9,500 more round trip miles. But we do see, the good teams are going to win. And before we go too much further, I got to give a quick shout out to Eddie Cunningham, good friend of the show, down at Lincoln County, going on the road, knocking off Powell, their first quarterfinal appearance since 2003. And their reward, they get to go to Sevier County this week. So just get your condo ready up there in Gatlinburg and just pitch a tent all week long because, Road Warriors is going to be the theme. There will be at least, it feels like, one, maybe two teams, regardless of classification, that are in the semifinals or maybe even make it to the championship games where we're like, holy smokes, have they covered each and every kind of speck of this state to get there. As a neutral observer, I mentioned with David on Friday as a neutral observer and somebody that did not drive to Memphis on Friday. Shout out to you for doing that for us. But to me, I like the matchups, and especially it's cool because we get those stories like Lawrence County going on and getting a huge, Lincoln County going on and getting a huge win.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the general consensus. You're seeing some new matchups, or you saw some new matchups that you would not necessarily have seen. And to your point, shout out to the Falcons because they got started like a house of fire. They were like 6-0 through the to start the regular season. I don't know if somebody got hurt and they got them back or what, but back where a lot of folks kind of expect Lincoln County football to be. So great job by Coach Cunningham and the staff down there. And like you said, they draw the Class 5A defending state champs in the quarters. But again, I think a lot of people enjoy seeing the matchups that you haven't seen previously, particularly this early in the playoffs. But, there's a lot of folks getting on a lot of buses and driving a long way that I just think it's going to be interesting, the conversation around this and whether the newness of these matchups offsets the extensive travel sufficiently to keep this in place.
Yeah, and the interesting thing too, you mentioned it a moment ago, a 1-year measure, but also this thing didn't pass by a whopping majority. It was like 54%, right? So, we're talking about something that kind of sneaks by. And I said, to me, it's a cool, unique feature. And I had a couple friends, we were trading texts and scores and whatnot across the state on Friday, and that was cool to see. But yeah, I'm not the one stroking the check to send a pep bus and send my band and send the cheerleaders and everybody else. So it's easy for me to say. If I was in that, I might be doing a different situation. I don't know that I would have forfeited like Chattanooga Central, but I would have maybe, sympathized a little more if I were in that position. So it is cool. It is unique. There's really no easy way to kind of promote it without doing the way that they did. But yeah, I will not be shocked if this does get overturned. And the timing of the meeting, depending on which viewpoint you have, could not be more fascinating.
Yeah. I think so much of Tennessee's issues with postseason play, particularly in football, it just is geographically related. This state is just so long, man, and it's really spread out, particularly when you start splitting up into 6 classes in Division I. So I don't know how you fix it. I don't know if you fix it, but bus companies are saying don't fix it.
Yeah, no, we load us up. We'll take any and all groups from your fine hometown, and we'll even get you back safe as well. We'll get you there and get you back.
There we go. As we mentioned, high school boys and girls basketball, high school wrestling regular seasons officially start today. The Loretto Mustangs boys basketball team comes into the year as your defending Class 2A state champions, going undefeated last year, finishing up 35-0. That 35-game winning streak, according to a graphic I saw over the weekend, is the 8th longest current win streak in the country. So Smith County Owls trying to avoid being number 36 when they go to Southern Middle Tennessee on Thursday night. Columbia Central goes down to Loretto on Saturday night. So something to keep an eye on there, just how far Greg Tips and his guys can run that streak up. A couple of opportunities to extend it here in the opening week of the season. Let's take a break here as we wrap up the first hour of the weekend wrap up on Main Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, let's talk a little professional football and the Titans. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
It's hour number 2 of the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. Houston 16, Tennessee 13, your final from Nissan Stadium yesterday as the Texans hit a walk-off field goal to further the Titans' woes. They are 1-9 with that loss. Houston improving to 5-5, and it really felt like a winnable game. And Jeffrey Simmons would agree. The big guy not very happy yesterday, kind of opened a vein in post game. And When you see teams struggle like this, particularly football teams, one of the concerns is, do you get a divided locker room when one team is playing conceivably well enough to win? And I mean, when one unit is conceivably playing well enough to win and the other one is not. And when you're holding folks to 16 points, you feel like that's a winnable ball game. And this was a winnable ball game. And the offense just did not quite take advantage. And Jeff sounds tired of it.
Yeah, and it's no one wants to hear this, but yet another, chalk this up to another stroke of bad Titans luck, because your defense plays well enough, and you get everybody kind of back, and you maybe you get the ugly game. I said it on Friday. You're going to need to win the ugliest game of your life to try and beat the Texans. You get the ugly game,
Right.
and you still don't get it done. And the offense looks obviously bad, but played, perhaps a stroke better, especially in the fourth quarter, obviously, than we would have anticipated versus the number one defense in the NFL. And the defense is as good as advertised. So we talked to Ben Arthur Friday, Mo, and I said the over-under for the Titans team total was listed at 15.5, and we both kind of recoiled and said, I don't know how they get to 15 versus this defense. I don't know how a lot of teams would, but let alone the Titans. And so credit for sticking with it, credit for fighting. But yeah, when you have both sides kind of pulling, perhaps, as hard as they can, but maybe they don't align and therefore perceived in opposite directions, you're going to see this. And Simmons was even frustrated during the game. I mean, he was barking on the sideline pretty heavy too. So, I mean, it rolled right over, right? And I mean, it's a frustrating loss because you were right there. You got the game plan and flow that you needed, but you still couldn't get it done, which we've said a few different times in games this season.
And, it does not get any easier. The Titans schedule is tough under the best of circumstances, but particularly when you're sitting here 1-9. They've got Seattle coming in next week. They've got Jacksonville coming in the week after that, Thanksgiving weekend. They go to Cleveland, they go to San Francisco, and they finish against the Chiefs, the Saints, and at Jacksonville. Wade, I don't know where another win is on this schedule.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, I texted a few folks this yesterday. That game on December 28th versus the Saints, a ladder match for the number one overall draft pick. Somebody's got to win. That game will just come down to which team wants to win the least. Someone's going to have to win it. Or maybe they just, chalk it up a little collusion and go for a tie. But you're right. Vegas has the over-under listed at 2.5 wins for the season. So you got to find two more. As tough as the Texans defense was, you got the Seahawks, who maybe just a shade below. And then a few weeks after that, even though it's going to be a ugly game for the Browns offensively, their defense is certainly one of the top 5 in the league. So, I mean, it is a similar script. The Titans need to catch some teams that are really kind of weak on the defensive side of the ball. And as fate would have it right now, they ain't catching those, and it will be tough. Maybe you get lightning in a bottle versus Jacksonville at home, who's kind of seemingly spiraling. But just when you think they're spiraling, they bounce back. So, I mean, who knows with them? But yeah, it's not looking good. It hasn't looked good since about week 5, and you're just kind of in that battle. Like I said, we're going to set up a ladder at the 50-yard line for a WWE ladder match on December 28th, and the team that rises to the top gets the number one overall pick. That's the way you should do it.
And, when you're struggling like this, nothing goes your way, right? I mean, you get Calvin Ridley back. You were talking about getting people back. You get Calvin Ridley back. He breaks his fibula. He's done for the year. Chim DK got hurt yesterday. I mean, you look up and Mason Kinsey's out there. Van Jefferson with a touchdown catch. I mean, the receiver core has really kind of gotten thin, and it wasn't necessarily a strength to begin with. So when you talk about this offense, you have to take that into consideration. But at some point, none of that matters. You just got to man up and go play, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it's chalk that up to bad luck. You finally get everybody back, especially a guy like Ridley, and he gets hurt, and you get him back against the elite defense in the NFL. I mean, every break is kind of conceivably going against him, and yeah, losing him for all that momentum, what little bit there was, maybe, a chance. If nothing else, I'd like to see Ward at least have some capable functioning bodies to really be able to throw. At least you get a better evaluation on him going forward. Not knocking the receivers themselves, but at least you get a better look at what he can do and who he can connect with going into next year. And unfortunately, you're kind of robbed of that as well.
Meanwhile, speaking of evaluating quarterbacks, Malik Willis comes off and leads a scoring drive for Green Bay in an eventual 27-20 win over the Giants yesterday. I mean, adding insult to injury to insult, I don't know. Former Titans quarterback comes in for Jordan Love. He had a shoulder injury. Again, led a scoring drive there and gave the Packers a spark, as was kind of the unanimous feel throughout the locker room from Matt LaFleur on down. And then Love comes back in the game. Green Bay scores another couple of touchdowns. One of those, a touchdown catch by former Titans tight end Josh Wiley. So, if you were a Titans fan and you were watching Green Bay, you were really punching at air yesterday.
Yeah, and, put a bow on the game that we saw at Nissan, too. We talked about it in the rundown. Matthew Wright, the kicker. This guy's been on like 20 different NFL teams, but he's been on the Titans at least 2 or 3 times. He's the one that boots, Houston to victory. So that stings. Malik Willis stings. Wild stings. I mean, it is, like you said, just you can't catch a break right now. The only real solace is if you're a Tankathon fanatic, you got a close competitive game and you slid out of town with the L. But that does nothing in terms of building rapport, building camaraderie, and building an entertaining product. And that's kind of hopefully your goal. It was a tough day all around. But real quick, too, credit to the Packers, who not only got off the schneid themselves, they were reeling. So credit to Malik Willis and credit to LaFleur, because there were whispers, about him being on the hot seat right there up in Green Bay. But sadly, that does deny us, because we got the full Jameis experience yesterday. I was hoping for the comeback. I was hoping for the win, but it wasn't meant to be. We had already seen the good Jameis earlier in the game, and then at the end, we saw the bad.
That's unfortunate, too, because, he has turned into certainly must-see TV, to say the least, at the NFL level. Green Bay, a half a game behind of all teams, the Chicago Bears in the NFC North. I don't think that was the way things were going to shake out during the preseason. I don't think anybody really expected that. The Bears sitting at 7-3, the Packers at 6-3-1. The Lions, following that loss last night to Philadelphia, are at 6-4, and the Vikings at 4-6.
Bears are hot. They're playing with that Ben Johnson good juju right now, right? They lost to the Vikings and Lions to start the year, reeled off 4 straight. Took an L to the Ravens, kind of a disgusting loss up in Baltimore when they were still really wounded, but an L's an L. But then they've reeled off 3 straight. They're kind of clicking. That division, as fun as it was last year because of the dominance of the Lions and the Vikings, with, the Packers right there on the cusp, it feels like it's going to be equally as entertaining toward the stretch this season. Schedule does get a little trickier for the Bears coming up soon, so it's good they started stacking those wins early when they get into the meat and potatoes down the stretch.
Meanwhile, the Rams stepped out in front in the NFC West with a 21-19 win over those Seahawks, who will be coming to Nashville next weekend. San Francisco with a 41-22 win over Arizona. So it's Rams, Seahawks, and Niners are within, a game and a half of each other. Rams at 8-2, Seattle 7-3, and the Niners 7-4 as things stand right now. I think we expected the NFC West to be this kind of competitive logjam, and we're certainly getting that.
Yeah, and yesterday's game, it didn't quite. It was still fun, and Seattle misses a field goal that would have potentially won it right there at the end. So I guess it technically lived up to the hype, but it didn't fulfill all the hype that I had hoped coming into it, because this was the game of the week by far for me rolling into Sunday. And LA escapes with the win. Matt Stafford, taking care of business. Sam Darnold, 4 interceptions. He is officially turned back into a pumpkin, at least for now. Shades of that game versus the Rams in the playoffs last year that really kind of sealed his fate in Minnesota, perhaps. But Matt Stafford, 15-28 passing, 2 touchdowns. He wrestles sole ownership of the MVP odds away from Drake May with that performance, and the Rams continue to kind of take names. That will be a fun division to decide. You're right.
Man, it would be nice for Sam Darnold to have a big game in a big game. because over the last couple of years, that certainly has not been the case.
No, and it was on such a run, a magical run, revitalization last year, and then yesterday, and then obviously the playoff game versus LA last year, and then the week before that, the Lions in 17. In the biggest moments, it's tough. And I heard somebody describe it earlier today. You can improve and you can get better, but you kind of ultimately can't change who you are. And that may be a tough way to describe what's going on with Darnold, because as much as he has come, or as far as he has come for where he started, man, in these pressure cooker moments, he has not looked good. Perhaps Darnold, licking his chops thinking, all right, at least I got the Titans coming up this week, because he was not effective at all yesterday. Otherwise, Seattle probably, and still had a chance to win the game, as I mentioned, with the field goal attempt.
And I will tell you this, man, watching the Titans here over the last few weeks and watching the way receivers just seem to run free through that secondary. I mean, if he can stay upright, he's liable to have a big game Sunday.
Yeah, and Seattle, that's the frustrating thing, is they didn't play their best, and like I said, 4 interceptions from Darnold, but they never really got things going, and a lot of that is because of the opponent that they were playing, right? I mean, we were seeing 2 of the best teams in the NFL, 2 of the certainly best teams in the NFC going toe-to-toe on enemy territory, as it were, for Seattle. So I'm still a Seattle truther a little bit. A lot of folks, were saying that they had really just ran up the score on some bad teams, and that may be true. But I think yesterday's game showed a little bit of sign of life too. Hey, they're not complete. Certainly not when Darnold's throwing picks out like candy, acting like Santa Claus there, just handing presents out. But they got a chance to kind of still get some magic and get back right. They still got the Rams to close the regular season, as well as a couple more games versus the 49ers. So don't count them out just yet. It'll be fun to watch them.
Denver and Kansas City was not necessarily a riveting watch, but the Broncos come up with the 22-19 victory, and the Chiefs are sputtering. Denver improves to 9-2. That's they're tied with the Patriots for the best record in the AFC right now. Kansas City falls to 5-5. And Heather's not happy.
No, and we are officially in 2 things officially here. Officially, number 1 is the Broncos. I don't know where that horseshoe is. I got a pretty good idea, but they got a horseshoe, and it is helping them out because Bo Nix was awful yet again, and they still yet again got a dub. They continue to defy conventional wisdom with some of these victories this season. On the other hand, we have officially entered crunch time territory for the Chiefs, because several other teams have already beat them to the market and beat them to the corner there. And now the Chiefs are going to have to not be flawless down the stretch, but they have left themselves almost no margin for error to even sneak in the playoffs right now.
There are 7 teams with a better record than the Chargers right now. And then the Chiefs, excuse me, at 5-5.
Yeah, they're out.
Yeah. So they are, as of this moment, they are on the outside looking in. Now, obviously, there's still 7 games to play, but to your point, their margin of error is slim to none, and I believe Slim just left town. They almost got I don't know that running the tape, because some of these other teams are going to lose, but man, you've put yourself on thin ice at this moment.
Yeah, and I mean, it starts this week, depending on what you think about the Colts, right? I mean, they got the Colts this week. Got the Texans, which may not sound, sexy, but I mean, the Texans have given them fits, at least defensively, over the last couple of years, even in the playoffs, right? And so that's in 2 weeks. You got the Chargers one more time. You still got to go back and play the Broncos toward the end of the season. Those 3 tough games right there, and that's not accounting for, some games. I don't trust this Chiefs team as much as I feel like I used to.
Right.
They're still that's the crazy thing, Mo. You can still maybe make the argument they're the best team top to bottom in the AFC, but as it sits right now, they wouldn't even be in the playoffs. Similar argument for the Ravens, right? But as a result, they have, left virtually no wiggle room down the stretch here, especially with some of those opponents they got left.
Yeah. It's funny. We talked about the Las Vegas Aces during the WNBA season and championship pedigree, and I think that kind of applies to this Kansas City Chiefs team. If they just get to the postseason, nobody wants to see them. But right now, it's a matter of getting to the postseason. So that'd be something to keep an eye on.
And to that point, Vegas does believe ever so slightly. They're minus 185 to get in the big dance right now. So they think they find a way to, and think about that though. Imagine you got Kansas City as the 7th seed and you're sitting there, as that top seed that has to play them that opening weekend. Good luck with that. But small glimmer of hope from Vegas, minus 185 to get in, plus 150 for the no price at the moment.
There we go. Wade, what do you make of Jaguars 35, Chargers 6? Was that just a simple? I don't think it was as simple as Joe Alt still being out, but what's up with the Chargers?
Well, that is about as simple as it gets, but also, yeah, they're when Alt is out, you don't know what the hell is going to happen with their offense. You're going to maybe occasionally see some decent performances, but you're also going to see some clunkers, and it was most certainly a clunker versus a reeling Jaguars team. The Jaguars were on life support, so maybe chalk it up to, hey, that was a desperate team almost in a must-win situation that came and showed out. That was a good win for the Jags, much to the chagrin of the Titans fans. They'll catch them at home in 2 weeks.
Jags hanging about 2 games behind Indianapolis in the AFC South, but they are, in the playoff picture right now. So there's that, despite, losing Travis Hunter for the season last week. Shedeur Sanders finally made his regular season debut as Dillon Gabriel was concussed in the first half of the Browns game against Baltimore yesterday. And Shedeur beat everybody else to the punch, basically. I don't think I played good at all, was his synopsis of a 4 of 16 performance for 47 yards with a pick. The lowest passer rating by any player with 15-plus attempts in their NFL debut since Brandon Whedon did so with the Browns in 2012. Make of that what you will. The 2 worst performances, both by Cleveland quarterbacks. 25% completion rate, tied with Terry Bradshaw for the 3rd lowest by a quarterback in their debut since 1970. The only quarterbacks worse were Scott Stankiewicz and Detroit's Jeff Comlow. And I know the next response is who, but yeah. That's where you're at. It was a rough day overall, but the thing that I was excited about is just being able to get out there. This is the first time I got hit since my last game at Colorado. So just having that feeling back is good, and I feel fulfilled overall when it comes to being out there practicing, going in between the lines, seeing what it's actually like. That was Shedeur's response following his debut in a 23-16 loss to Baltimore. It appears that he would be the starter should Gabriel not get back for next weekend. Bailey Zappi, former Western Kentucky standout, former New England Patriot, has been signed to their practice squad. And that's where Cleveland is at the signal caller position. And you remember when we were going on about what that quarterback room looked like during the offseason? Well, that's what it looks like now. Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and Bailey Zappi.
Yeah, and it's got to be frustrating for Browns fans because, you're 2 years removed from that magical run and making the playoffs, and vibes were high. Still have pretty much that elite defense intact. And it's interesting that we mentioned mentioned Travis Hunter a moment ago, because Mason Graham, the guy that was, involved in that trade, basically, he has been a terror. The Browns, an already elite defensive unit, added Graham. They added perhaps Schweichinger, your rookie of the year defensively. That has got to be so frustrating because each and every single week, your defense is good enough. We don't need more than 10 points, guys, on most weeks. You hold the Ravens to 23, and that's when you already have your backup quarterback inserted. It's a frustrating season, but it's kind of vintage Browns. But that was a must-win game for the Ravens as well, and they were really up against it because they didn't score that go-ahead touchdown till late in the contest. It looked like we were destined for overtime.
Monday Night Football, Dallas at Vegas. I think I'll probably be paying to Rice in Tennessee on the hardwood than that one. That's not a matchup that does a whole lot for me. Cowboys coming in at 3-5-1, Vegas 2-7. Ugh.
Yeah, everybody with YouTube TV is like, hey, this is the game you come back to. This is the one we get. We couldn't have had this. We had the Cowboys 2 weeks ago, in a little bit of a throwaway game, but now this one is pretty rough. And yeah, at least Dallas has a little glimmer of hope, albeit as faint as possible. They're the only one with real skin in this game. The Vegas Raiders have been so awful this season that this will be a tough watch. This will be a pass on the majority of households, I would imagine, tonight.
Is Pete Carroll one and done, Wade?
He felt like one and done almost, maybe when he got hired, because, it was such an odd pairing and the timing was weird. I don't know that we have got any real evidence. The only excuse is if you're Pete, look around and say, hey, I didn't have Brock Bowers till like week 9. And who knows? That might be enough to save you, because Geno was awful without Bowers. Geno's kind of been less awful with Bowers. But some of your pieces, you go out and you draft a running back against conventional wisdom so high. I mean, none of their offseason moves worked out, which is classic Raiders. So
Vegas.
I'll be curious to see. I would not be surprised if it is one and done, but I think it's going to be more on, does Pete even want to come back? He might sit there and say, this sounded like a cool idea. Now that I've got here, I don't want any part of this.
There we go. Let's take a break here on the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we'll talk a little Tennessee athletics with Ben McKee from Go Vols 24/7. Stick around.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We are awaiting the arrival of Ben McKee from Go Vols 24/7. And man, oh man, one, it's been a while since we talked to Ben, so really looking forward to this. And two, there's a lot that has taken place over the last couple of days in Knoxville, and we're not just talking about football. So, really hoping Mr. McKee gets in here to shed some light on a recent roster move for Josh Heupel's squad. Not so much the New Mexico State game. I mean, 42-9, not exactly an overwhelming win for the Vols, but it was a win. And, this team, they are definitely on the outside looking in terms of playoffs. I wonder if it's the recognition of that, what that does for the team's psyche here coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot to really dive into, right? Didn't watch any of the game, and then I know a lot of Vols fans that didn't
Mhm.
even tune in because, yeah, kind of your traditional bye game. The classic SEC when late in the season after you've gone through the gauntlet, now you get a chance to kind of catch your breath. But we've seen some teams struggle in spots like this, and so Tennessee kind of went about their business. Probably maybe should have scored some more points in the first half. A lot of Vols fans would argue, but. Um, Kind of just went through the motions, celebrated
Mhm.
homecoming in style, got the dub. And yeah, you're just going to kind of play it out and see what happens. One thing is for sure. I mean, there's like the absolute faintest, like a 1%, 2% chance that you can maybe sneak in. But the only way that you can do that is to take care of business yourself and then see what happens. So at least kudos to them for taking care of their end of the bargain.
Yeah, and to your point, they did win homecoming, which is more than at least one Southeastern Conference team can say this weekend. But we digress. Ben McKee of Go Vols 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ben, man, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing well. Apologies for being a little delayed here. I was trying to get my kid from getting home from daycare.
Understood, man. We appreciate your diligence in joining us. Obviously, you know, as we were mentioning before you came on, 42-9, not great. Um, Boo Carter, uh, we finally got some clarity on that situation.
Yes, we finally did. It's a situation that should not have happened this season. If we're being totally honest, I don't think that I'm all for second chances and big believer in giving grace, obviously, but I just always felt like his second chance was going to be detrimental to the football team this season. And he, honestly, he had plenty of chances leading up to his announced second chance. He had a bunch of, I guess, little do-overs, if you want to call them that, leading up to Josh Heupel draining him back on the team back in fall camp. But you just heard a lot of talk about how teammates were kind of really watching to see the decision that Josh Heupel made in terms of whether or not to bring him back on the team and so on and so forth. And so I've always been a big believer and said it at the time. I'm not saying it now in hindsight that he should not have been allowed back in the first place, just because I thought it was going to be a detriment to the rest of the defense, the rest of the team. And I think you've kind of seen that at times with how teammates have responded to him. Maybe at times the secondary has not given the effort or the energy necessary, and it's hard not to think that Boo Carter played a role in that from time to time. So good that they're finally moving on, but I also think it's look, again, you give Josh Heupel for giving somebody a second chance, but I think the talent is why you gave him a second chance, not necessarily because he deserved one. But it's a second chance again that I never thought should have happened in the first place. So I think it's a great thing that it's finally over for Tennessee, because Boo Carter was just simply a huge issue for Tennessee.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because in our show notes, I've got Boo Carter done. Feels like it should have happened before this.
That is for several weeks now. Myself and Jason Swain have been discussing on our show that it just makes no sense that he continues to, I guess, be allowed to be to stick around and be a part of the team. I mean, there are some instances in which you would not you would play him on special teams, but you wouldn't play him on defense. So, I mean, if he's going to be a part of the team, why would you play him on special teams, but not on defense? And this was early in the year before he had that play at Kentucky where he just really showed poor effort when he got beat and allowed the touchdown down the sideline. So you can understand why he didn't play defensively against Oklahoma and on special teams against Oklahoma after he showed that lack of effort against Kentucky. But even before then, you'd play him on special teams, but not on defense, and it almost seemed like a punishment because you didn't trust him. But why is he going to be on the team if you're going to play him on one unit and not the other? So it's been, I think, if you're a Tennessee fan, it's been a maddening conversation the last several weeks because Boo did not show any remorse. He did not show any sign that he wanted to be at Tennessee and just continued to hurt the team and his teammates. And you hit the nail on the head there with that brief comment of feels like it should have happened a long time ago.
And he's been allowed to spin it that he is going into the transfer portal, that it's something that he is kind of taking on. The move is something he has taken ownership of, I guess. And I don't guess it really matters how you spin it. He's no longer on the team. But obviously, Colorado has been the thought all along. Does Dion want this?
Well, do we ever know what Dion is really thinking? So maybe I'd like to think no. I mean, I don't know if you're Dion, why you would want to deal with this. The play on the field, the talent is not worth it. Not worth the migraine. It's not a headache worth the migraine, in my opinion. I mean, from Mama Boo making comments on Facebook all the time and saying this, saying that, talking about how they can't wait to get out of Knoxville, and I just Dion needs all the talent he can get, it appears right now, but I don't know that Boo Carter solves those issues. Those have been the rumors for a long time, going back to fall camp, but I don't know why you would want anything to do with Boo Carter if you're Deion Sanders. I don't care how talented he is. I think personally, maybe the talent proves me wrong and somebody else will take a chance on him, but I don't see how he doesn't have to transfer down a level after all this.
Ben, I'm curious, when I read this story, when I hear this and I hear you and Mo just now, to me, it's kind of like, well, yeah, it maybe should have been done, or I'm kind of just neutral, right? But I'm curious internally, is there a boost amongst the team in your mind? Is there a reaction amongst the team? I'm just curious what your kind of vibes are internally, you think?
I think there certainly could be, at least in the secondary, that they just no longer have to put up with the awkwardness of it. I mean, if you've watched any Tennessee football game, if Boo was involved in a play, none of his teammates came up to congratulate him or give him a high five, and vice versa. If there was a defensive touchdown, Boo was by himself, kind of celebrating by himself or walking off the field by himself. So, those secondary guys, I think it would be a big boost for them that they just don't have to deal with the awkwardness of it. And Boo's just been a headache from January and been a no-show for workouts and team events and so on and so forth. And it was kind of mystifying to them and frustrating for them as to why he continued to be around when he was not putting in the same effort as they were. So I certainly think it could be a boost for him and the defense as a whole as well. I would throw the defense into what I'm saying about the secondary, just not having to put up with the awkwardness of it. Because if they're not interacting with him on Saturdays inside the stadium, they're not interacting or messing with him as the kids say nowadays in the meeting rooms. So I do think it's a bit of a boost, and you've seen without him playing the last two games, the secondary has played a little bit better. And I think it was Jalen McMurray during the open week. I asked him why the defense played better for 3 quarters against Oklahoma. And he said the communication was better. And I would imagine it's easier to communicate when you remove somebody like Boo Carter from the situation.
I smell what you're putting down there.
Yeah, absolutely. When you say that they weren't interacting with him, he wasn't interacting with them, Ben, it kind of reminds me of Barry Bonds and the home run chase a few years back.
Yes, we're
very similar vibes there. But and you hate to talk like this about a kid, but it ain't like it's not deserved either.
Correct. And they're more professional athletes than ever. And, Boo is somebody who was paid handsomely. And not only was he paid handsomely, but he was receiving a nice paycheck after he got a new deal after his freshman season. And the new deal was deserved based off of how he played as a true freshman. But with more money comes more responsibilities. What was it, Jay-Z that said, "More money, more problems"?
Not Jay-Z. It was Biggie.
Biggie, that's right. Nowadays you hear so many different rappers throw that into their songs.
All right, well, nice attempt at a cover there, Ben. Well played.
I know. My guy J.
Yep.
Cole has a line in there too, and that's all I could think about was J. Cole for what it's worth. But more money, more problems for Tennessee with re-up and Boo's deal, and for Boo, just more money, more responsibilities, more expectations, and he did not handle those responsibilities or expectations well. So yeah, like I'm uncomfortable. This has been an uncomfortable 7 to 8 minutes talking about a young man who's I would assume 19, 20 years old. Lord knows I'm still making mistakes at 30 years old. I'm still trying to be more mature on a daily basis and be more disciplined on a daily basis as a 30-year-old. Lord knows I was far from it at 18, 19, 20 years old when I was in junior college. And now this is a young man who's playing SEC football and all the expectations of the state on him because of where he's from and his high school ranking. Like, yeah, it's an uncomfortable couple of minutes to talk about it and just flat out call him out. But I feel like they've done it to themselves, the family and his camp, with how they've carried themselves the last couple of months. And it is, although it's uncomfortable and a little weird, it does make it a little easier when, you know, they're making as much money as they are, and he got a new deal earlier this year.
That said, Ben, while Heupel might have taken care of this later than you would have liked, between the Nico situation and this situation, I mean, he continues to show in a very upfront manner that nobody's bigger than the team, right?
Well, I think that's a fascinating conversation with Boo, because if nobody's bigger than the team, then why was Boo allowed to remain with the team? So
as long as he did,
yes, like I agree with you, but I do think it's a fair question to at least ask. And I'm somebody who is a big believer in Josh Heupel's culture, which is why and how he builds the culture, which is why I was so surprised that he allowed Boo to remain on the team back in August. So
especially
I
right
do
after the
think,
Nico saga, right? It felt like, okay, I've drawn a line in the sand and, you know, not to be trifled with per se, and then kind of waffled slightly. I see what you're saying a little bit.
yeah, right, exactly. And again, I'm all for second chances, but it just did not feel like the right one, because although you didn't have to publicly come out and say I'm giving Boo Carter a second chance, he had a lot of opportunities during the offseason when he was missing workouts and missing meetings. Like, it was just second opportunity after second opportunity, second chance after second chance. So it's not like when he announced that he was staying with the team in August after Boo had disappeared for like a week. It's not like that was his actual second chance. He had been given plenty of opportunities to get things sorted out, but like you're down Jamal McCoy. You're curious as to how the secondary is going to shake out in general. You lost Jacoby Thomas to the portal after the spring at safety. Like, you needed that talent back there. There's no denying that. It's just the problems far outweigh the talent, especially with how he was having an impact on his teammates. So yeah, he has publicly drawn the line in the sands, but I don't know that his Boo Carter actions back that up.
Right.
And even on the Nico front, like they could have, like, Nico's camp wasn't totally wrong with some of the, not necessarily the money aspect of it, but their thoughts of Tennessee didn't surround Nico in the best manner, at least in terms of linemen and receivers that were around him. Now, when you think about it, this season has maybe disproved that a little bit, because look at what Nico would have had with Mike Matthews and Braylon Staley and Chris Brazzell. The offensive line has been pretty good. The tackles have been really good, especially Lance Hurd. So it's gotten better. But it looked bleak there for a minute, at least in terms of what Nico was surrounded by on the offensive side. So I think that was the nobody's bigger than the power T. That was an easy line when the fans were going to be on your side at the time that happened. So kudos to Josh Heupel that there haven't been a lot of issues within the program. When was the last time somebody was arrested? Like, they don't deal with this stuff on a consistent basis. So I think you give Heupel a lot of credit for that he runs a clean program, that guys don't get in trouble, at least in big trouble. But I do think it's fair to question Heupel on a couple of things with this Boo Carter situation.
There we go. Ben McKee of VOLS 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today. Ben, Wade and I were talking before you came on. 42-9 against New Mexico State this past weekend. A little lackluster, probably all in all. How much of that is impacted by Tennessee's playoff ranking and just being realistic about their chances to get in? They're not great.
Yeah, they're not getting in. The I don't see that happening whatsoever. But I don't. I think a lot of it had to do with the opponent on Saturday. Just it's New Mexico State. It's homecoming. We're 40-point favorites. Like those guys see that coming off of a bye week. This time of year, you'd rather be playing SEC teams. You'd rather be playing in the swamp. You'd rather try to stick it to Diego Pavia after Diego ran his mouth all off season long. It's just I think it's easy for us to say on the outside looking in, and I'm talking about fans as well. Like why can't you get up for this football game? But it's a little human nature as well to not be as locked in as you would be for Florida or Vanderbilt or Oklahoma or any of those type of teams. So I was not impressed to your point about it being lackluster. I do agree with you there. I think a lot of it had to do with who they are playing. And then I think the other aspect of it, because the defense played pretty well. The first team defense did not allow a touchdown. You were able to produce a touchdown with William Wright. Ty Redmond had an interception. Uh, you were able to stop them from running the football. I don't remember what the exact numbers are. They did throw for over 300 yards. New Mexico State did. We added it up. Me and Patrick Brown did after the game, but like 150, 160 of those passing yards came in the fourth quarter. When second team, third team defense is in there, backups are in there, the game's out of hand. So I thought the defense played well, which might be a good sign of things to come for Tennessee against Florida and Vanderbilt. But in addition to maybe not being as locked in because of who you're playing, Joey Aguilar seems to be in a bit of a funk right now. And if he doesn't throw that interception on the first drive of the game, they did do a good job of bouncing back on those next three possessions in the first quarter, but the second quarter was abysmal. Through the second inning, he was getting hit, kind of forcing things. And then you go, I believe it was back-to-back 3-and-outs on your next two possessions. And then your only possession after that in the half was the one when you got the football back with 8 seconds left. So you really had 3 possessions against New Mexico State as 40-point favorites. You threw an interception, and you had back-to-back 3-and-outs. So it was an ugly second quarter. And I wonder how much of those Joey interceptions kind of put the offense into a funk. So, yeah, I do think that they weren't as locked in as they should be because of who they're playing. I think it's fair to bring up the playoffs as well, being eliminated from the playoffs. That takes the sting out of it a little bit as well. But those interceptions, I think, just as much take the energy out of the stadium and out of the offense as much as those other circumstances. And that's going to be a key for Tennessee this week against Florida. Joey Aguilar's thrown 4 interceptions in the last 2 games, and they've been bad interceptions. Getting him back on track is going to be paramount in Tennessee trying to win on Saturday night.
Like you said, they got to get locked in with Florida in the swamp and then at home against Vanderbilt to close things out. Shifting gears just a second, thoughts about Rice coming in tonight, taking on the number 20 Tennessee men?
Interested to see what JP Estrella continues to do. He's been my favorite player to watch on the VOLS so far this season. I think most people would say Nate Ament, and I have enjoyed watching Nate Ament these first couple of games. He's won SEC Freshman of the Week both weeks now that he's been able to start the season, which is pretty good. I don't think we're going to stop seeing him win SEC Freshman of the Week. Jacoby Gillespie's been a lot of fun as well, but I think it's been really cool to see JP Estrella come back from injury the way that he has, and he's just so smooth on offense and has been uber productive. And if this is something that Tennessee is going to get consistently when they're playing Houston next Tuesday, or when they go to Syracuse, when they go to Nashville to play Illinois here in a couple of weekends, SEC play, if this is the JP Estrella they're going to get, then I think it changes the trajectory of this team, because I was worried about them having a third scoring option. I didn't know where that was going to come from. And if this translates from Estrella, and he is truly the third scoring option in addition to Ament and Gillespie, then then I think it's a real Final Four contending team that we have on our hands, that we're watching. Whereas I thought going into the season they were more Elite Eight, Sweet 16 because they lacked. I thought they lacked that that third scoring option. So interested to see how JP continues to start of his season. And then there's of course a conversation with that shooting guard spot, that 2 guard spot. I don't know that we're going to see Bishop Boswell tonight because of the foot injury that cost him last Wednesday's game against North Florida as well. So Ethan Berg, he gets here late because he played for the Israeli national team. How is he continuing to progress? Because Tennessee's going to need him this season. His shooting, his offensive burst at that 2 guard spot. And then also Nate Ament trying to settle in, continue to settle in as well. He's been great the first 3 games, but obviously he's going to be a key piece for Tennessee this season, and Tennessee needs him to continue to settle in as he has. Jacoby Gillespie needs to continue to settle in as well. A little too many turnovers here and there for Jacoby as he continues to learn the Tennessee system and learn what Rick Barnes expects from him. So just interested to see the continued growth of this team early on this season. Haven't really played anybody outside of the Duke exhibition. They'll have a big week next week when they go to Vegas. But how do these pieces continue to settle in? That's kind of what I'm watching for tonight.
Hey, Ben, I was going to ask you, about Nate. There's a lot of chatter, maybe not number 1 overall, but I was going to ask, top 2, top 3 in next year's NBA draft. Scratch all that because NBADraft.net has them going 8 to the Grizzlies. And, just cool your jets, Nate. We don't need you going too high up the board. We could use him over there on Beale Street if you catch my drift, partner.
Well, I at the rate things are going on Beale Street, the Grizzlies will be picking high enough to draft Mr. Ament. So I think it's possible we can pair him with the great Cedric Coward and Zach Edey, and if Ja Morant is ever able to stay healthy and out of trouble, pair him with Ja and Jaren. At the rate things are going for the Grizzlies, they'll be in the top 3 or top 5 to pick Nate, but they need
maybe a different way to really kind of ask a sincere question here, though. Same draft, mock draft, NBADraft.net, which is one of the better ones over the years. They have 8 out of the top 10 are freshmen. So I'm curious, from what you've seen from Nate thus far, what can he do, or what does he do that distinguishes him amongst a just insanely talented freshman class in college basketball?
He's a guard in a 6'10" body. It's
a good start.
That's a good start. I mean, I'm not saying he's Kevin Durant, but it's what's so impressive about Kevin Durant is he's so tall and lanky and has so much size, and his measurements would not. I know KD's thin, but at least in terms of his height, would not suggest that he's a shooting guard or a small forward. But his skill set suggests that he's a shooting guard or a small forward, and that's what Nate is. He is not. I have not once in practice. I'm sure they've done it at least once when I wasn't there, but at the practices I've been at, in a game this season, Nate, I have not seen play the 4 once, and he's 6'10". He handles the ball. His ball handling skills are just ridiculous for somebody that size. He's got a sweet jump shot. I don't think Tennessee fans have seen the fruits of that labor just yet, but they will at some point as he continues to settle in. But it's just how skilled he is at that size. It's what impresses you about Victor Wembanyama and KD. It's guys that are that big should not be that skilled. They should not play like a guard with that much size, and that's what Nate does. He's real crafty. I think he's a great passer as well. I think that's a part of his game that's underrated is his ability to see the floor and pass. But he's got a great shot. He can get to the rim. He can finish at the rim. There's a lot to like about Nate. But you start with the fact that he's a guard and a 6'10" body.
The Lady Vols coming this way on Thursday night, going over to Murphy Center, taking on MTSU. Should be an interesting matchup there. I'm afraid some other obligations are going to keep me from getting over there, Ben. But we have not had you on since a certain coaching change on campus. Give me your thoughts on Tony Vitello going to San Francisco.
I think it's a great opportunity for Tony, and I think that's ultimately why he decided to leave. It was just too good of an opportunity to turn down, to not only be a big league manager, but B, you're not going to be the big league manager of the Minnesota Twins or the Tampa Bay Rays, a small market team. You're going to be the manager of the San Francisco Giants, which is one of the best organizations, not only in baseball, but of all of sports. So it was a great opportunity. Him and Buster Posey developed a great relationship, a great rapport. And I think he just became enamored with the opportunity and the thought of being the first coach to ever win a college World Series and a Major League World Series. Not only would he become the first, but if he were able to pull that off, who's the next coach that is off? I mean, there's going to be some time in between, and potentially distinguishing himself as one of the greatest coaches in the sport, regardless of college or professional level, if he were to pull that off. So we know how Tony is in terms of his mindset, and he's a go-getter. And I think the opportunity to go win a World Series at each level was just an idea that he began to fall in love with, in addition to obviously it being a great opportunity to join the Giants. So obviously not ideal for Tennessee. He was arguably the best coach in the country. Him and Jay Johnson at LSU, he won you a national championship. There was obviously a great relationship, even off the field with the fans. Fans adored him. In addition to the on-field product. So not ideal for Tennessee to lose Tony Vitello, but I think if you're Tennessee, you just tip your hat because he resurrected a dead program. It was a program that nobody cared about, didn't have any resources, and now a lot of people care about it. And there's a lot of resources for them to continue this thing on under Josh Elander. So I think if you're Tennessee, although you're sad and disappointed that he's gone because of all the memories that were created, I think you tip your hat to him and you wish him well.
There is so much more that I would like to get into with you on that, and we're going to have to bring you back so that we can. But Ben McKee of Go Vols 24/7 joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Ben, as always, we appreciate you spending some time with us. And again, looking forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yes, hope it's real soon. Happy to join anytime. Apologies again for the delay. You can blame my 3-year-old and 1.5-year-old.
We got it.
No, that's fine. We're good. We're good. We'll catch up, man.
Thanks.
We are going to wrap things up without a break here. We're going to head into the grab bag section, I guess, of the weekend wrap up here on Main Street Sports today. Let's start. We talked a little Grizzlies earlier as we were talking about the Pelicans and their move. They dropped a 108-100 decision to the Cavaliers over the weekend. Their fourth straight loss, their eighth in their last 9 now. But reinforcements are coming. Former Vol Jemai Meshack has signed a two-way deal with the Grizzlies. He had been with the Memphis Hustle, and apparently Memphis has gotten a little thin in the backcourt, and so they have brought him up from the G League and signed him to again a two-way deal there after, a pretty good summer. Just didn't really have any of him, but exciting for him. The number 59 pick overall in the draft. With the Memphis Hustle, he had been averaging 7.5 points, 5.5 assists, 3.5 steals, and so gives them a little bit of a defensive presence there. Again, in a backcourt that's gotten thin.
And this is kind of more of a little bit of a roster maintenance move, but man, the Grizzlies have done wonders over the last several seasons of turning some of these second or undrafted guys into role players and beyond. And it seemed like they liked what they saw at him, in the summer. Like you said, just didn't really have a spot. So they kind of stashed him and, be fascinated to see. Didn't know that you would see him this early. Didn't maybe know that you would see him at all. But the fact you are, their track record, I'll be excited to see what's ahead of him because the lineage has been nice, and we'll see if that continues.
Big news this afternoon out of Blacksburg, Virginia, apparently. A number of media outlets are reporting that Virginia Tech is hiring James Franklin to replace Brent Pry, who was dismissed midseason. I guess it's been about 2 months ago now, September 14th. Franklin dismissed not long after that at Penn State. And so he is landing in the ACC. The first of those bunch of vacancies that have come up this midseason to be filled, I guess.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right? Because we wondered when this would kind of kick off, and Franklin, he goes on game day and says, I'm bringing a national championship to somebody. It just ain't gonna be Penn State. How quickly can he do it at Va Tech will be the question, and got to been a sweet deal, right? I mean, with so many other high-profile jobs open, this one probably way down on your pecking order, you would think. But Franklin's been a builder, and there is reason to be excited if you are a Hokies fan because his track record has proven building, and this is a program that definitely needs some building along the way. Even though the ACC's down, they're not in the mix, so that kind of tells you what you need to know right there.
I'm interested if he's going to take over down the stretch or if he's just going to focus on recruiting at this point, and whoever the interim had been is going to continue. I don't know how that's going to work, but that's interesting hiring a coach midseason. We see him get fired all the time, but I don't know that I've seen one hired like this. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and you mentioned recruiting. This is going to be pretty interesting to watch because even though he was in Happy Valley, he wore it out on the recruiting trail in Virginia Beach and kind of that Hampton Roads area. He was signing, what did I see here? 6 of the top 10 prospects in the state of Virginia went to Penn State as recently as 2023. So this guy's kind of got some familiarity, passed the sniff test. They're donating a bunch of money. They're putting a lot of money into their overall athletic budget. So this is kind of a sign that Virginia Tech is, saying, hey, we're kind of getting serious about being good at football again. And, on paper, this seems like a great move for everybody.
It really does. I mean, I don't know that you really thought Virginia Tech would necessarily have the juice to go this high. And I guess there are some that would say that maybe this isn't this high. But I think James Franklin was going to be one of the top hires in this cycle if he decided to, go that way. Nobody happier to see this than Penn State because he had some offsets in his contract that, what was it, a $54 million buyout, I think, that they will not be on the hook for all of that, I guess. So he's happy. Penn, it'll be interesting to watch. Texas A&M was down 30-3 at halftime against South Carolina, came back and won 31-30. Marcel Reed threw for 3 touchdowns and ran for 1 in the second half. Biggest comeback in that program's history. Fun to see, especially for a Nashville kid to do that. But, man, it's a hell of a way to lose a ball game for your South Carolina.
Yeah, it's almost like South Carolina. Shane Beamer got the news at halftime that James Franklin was getting the Va Tech job and not him, because it seemed like he was destined to get it if he wanted it. And it was almost like, well, you know what? I guess I'm sticking around with you guys. And then, they got waxed in the second half. Epic comeback. Texas A&M right there in the thick of things for a top 2, maybe even top seed, depending on how things shape up down the stretch.
You kind of got to wonder if that was Marcel's Heisman moment as well. So, big second half for him. And that's going to do it for the weekend wrap-up edition of Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Tune in tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I believe it's Wade and Calvin. No, it's David and Calvin holding things down for us. So, again, 2 o'clock tomorrow. Be sure and join Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Y'all have a great Monday evening.